Okay.
your convalescence.
When I got to Vietnam, I was in 25th Division, first of the 27th Infantry. And I got there right about the time, I got there, I would say, let's say January 5th or 6th of 1967. And the unit had come over as a unit about a year before that. So they had been through, a full rotation and had a lot of replacements. So when I got there, I was just, I guess, assigned on a random basis to the weapons platoon in the company, and I was I guess became trained as a mortar operator, part of the mortar crew, and in doing that over the next month or two, I got to know the fellow who was the mortar forward observer, a guy named John Wilson. And I guess we became friendly, and he had he asked me if I wanted to be his RTO, his radio operator. And as I think I mentioned to you, when I went to Vietnam, I was about the same height I am now, about 5'11", and I weighed 119 pounds. I was in good shape, but I was really thin. And as you may have heard from others, you just carried a whole bunch of stuff when you were in the infantry. And, this is almost like the Tim O'Brien story, the things they carried and how much things weighed. But as part of the mortar unit, I think if I remember correctly, I had to carry 4 mortar rounds and half the base plate.
The base plate alone weighed 60 pounds.
Yeah, so you would, it's split in two, so you would carry half on a handle, and it was the kind of thing that would bang into your, ankle and your leg every step. And it really, that got to be the, almost the worst part. It would be nice if there was a sniper, because you could stop walking and lay down and rest. And that was, in addition to all the other stuff you carried. So even though being an RTO was usually the least appealing job, because you had the big antenna and you were obviously with a person of rank, I was willing to do that. So I became his RTO, and actually by the time I got wounded, which was at the end of March, only less than 3 months after I was there, he was probably going to get a platoon of his own, because so many people were getting wounded that people would bump up. And so he was trying to give me a pretty quick training course in being a mortar forward observer.
Okay.
But on the day that I was wounded, for some reason, I don't quite remember the reason now, our platoon sergeant's radio operator was not available. And I was carrying my radio for Sergeant Davis. I don't remember his first name, but his name was Davis. And we were, I remember this, some of this I remember as clearly as if it happened yesterday. We were in an area of dry paddies, rather open area. And one of the things that you try to never do was to walk on the dikes. Though it was very appealing because the dikes were flat, the paddies were lumpy and bumpy, and you sprain an ankle. And Sergeant Davis, for some reason, was walking ahead of me on the paddy wall on the dike, and he tripped a mine, tripped a booby trap, and I just remember I still have this memory of feeling like the world was a spring that had been compressed. Let's say a 3-foot wide spring that had been compressed to an inch wide, and then let go, and just the whole world was reverberating. And I guess it was the pressure in my ears, and I was actually blown back quite a bit from where I was, and I was fortunate in that I didn't really feel any pain. The first thing I saw was that my left hand was all bloody because I had a minor wound there, and it turned out though that I had a shrapnel wound. A piece of shrapnel went in my left shoulder and came out my back, and that actually was I guess bled quite a bit, though it damaged the nerve, so I never really felt anything. And it also turned out I had shrapnel in my right knee, though I didn't know that till the next day. The medic, Sergeant Davis, got much more seriously wounded than I did. But, I guess a couple of the medics, one came to him and one came to me. And, just put the dressings on my shoulder, front and back.
You stayed conscious?
Yeah, I was conscious the whole time. And actually someone had just been shot by a sniper a few minutes before. And there was a medevac chopper that had just picked them up, and that chopper came back. So I was medevaced out on the chopper almost, I'd say within 10 minutes. Yeah. And I was able to walk to the chopper, and Davis was a mess. He wound up, he got the shrapnel, I guess, on his right side, and he wound up losing an eye and, a lot of his hand, and I don't know if he lost all of his foot, but and he was in bad shape, and he was screaming the whole way back. But we flew back to Cucci, which was, I don't remember I don't know, I never knew exactly where I was, but it wasn't that far. And I was fine, actually. I was able to, I thought I was okay. I was able to help carry the stretcher with Davis on it back into the hospital. It wasn't a tent, I guess it was a more permanent building. And it was kind of surreal, because what would happen was, I guess they had sort of a holding area, and they must have taken Davis right into the operating room, and they just sort of they told me you can't walk, you have to be flat, you have to be on a stretcher on a bed. So I'm sort of laying in the middle. There are people sitting all around who I guess it was like they were at the doctor's office, and I'm there, and I must have looked worse than I felt. They were sort of looking at me strangely. And, I remember asking for water and being told, no, you can't have any. And, I was a smoker then, and I asked for a cigarette. They gave me you couldn't drink, but they would let you smoke. And I guess then within, a relatively short time, they took me into the I guess the prep room, or I don't know, maybe it was the operating room, yeah. And, they started cutting my clothes off, and the last thing I remember basically was one of the doctors saying to me, did you get wounded in the leg too? And I said, no. And he said, okay. And then the next thing I remember was the next day, and I woke up in a hospital bed, and, I had my arm in a sling, I had my right leg in a splint, which, again, I didn't even know there was anything wrong with it, but there was this, full leg splint. And my left hand was wrapped up from my thumb injury. But the thing that I think is the most striking to me, we had been out in the field for almost a month. And I'm sure from speaking to other people, you get filthy. I mean, I was black. You could wash your face a little bit. And when I woke up the next day and I got to look at my body, they had sort of, my wound was on this side. They had washed and shaved, let's say from here over. And the rest of the other side was all still black. And I'm wondering, that was, couldn't they wash all of me? But I was not in pain. I was very fortunate, again, because the nerve damage.
Not even to the
there.
hand or knee?
No. I mean, for some reason, it was not a painful injury. We had the medal, the Purple Heart award thing. The general comes around and they pin the Purple Heart on you. That stuff.
It's a club that nobody wants to belong to.
Right. But Philip, almost from the beginning, because the doctors were pretty clear that I had sustained nerve damage. I couldn't move my arm at all. And, they were pretty blunt. They said, if you get the use of your arm back, it's going to be a long time. They had thought that the nerve was cut. And if that's the case, if they're able to, to get the nerve back together, it regenerates, I think, at the rate of 1 millimeter a month or something like that. So it turned out in retrospect that it was only bruised. So I recovered the use of my arm much sooner. But I knew I had the $1 million wound. I knew that, the war was over for me. So there was that, sense of relief. I spent a couple of days.